Hey everyone, how are you doing? This is Humanity Chats with Marjy. We do this on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. It's just an everyday conversation. We bring a guest in and we talk about issues that are affecting humans. Today we have a wonderful guest. Her name is LaMonica Okrah. She is from the south side of Chicago. She attended Harvard Business School, class of 2005, I believe. So this is her 15th year reunion. Let me bring LaMonica in here, and she can tell us a little bit more about herself. And the good thing is, she's going to tell us also about the college application process, going to grad school, finding money, all the good stuff. So let's welcome LaMonica to the chat room, everybody. Hey!
Hey, Marge. How are you?
I am good. I am good. Hi, LaMonica. It is so good to see you.
Yes, thank you for having me. This is really cool. I've watched these in the past, so it's nice to be in a guest chair.
I see you looking all fly. I'm loving that hair.
It's big hair. Don't care.
And I'm loving those hoops.
The hoops, thank you. Thank you. I'm representing Ghana a little bit too with the necklace and the bracelet. Selena Bed bracelet. So.
Oh my goodness, I should totally be doing this. You know, I like to wear Selena Beb stuff. I'm representing Ghana too. I don't know who this is, but my cousin bought it for me. So hey, Ghana.
I love it. I love it.
Well, it's good to see you, LaMonica. It's good to have you here. And, you know, today we're just going to have a conversation about education, about how you want us to utilize our opportunities. We're ready for all the tips that you have for us. It's exciting. The country is we're going through some tough times right now, and it's hard. It's hard to stay focused. People are losing their jobs. People cannot find jobs. We have families that are sick. I've had several complaints from people who don't know what they're going to do because they have H-1B visas, and this, you know, it's a mess. And so we're hoping that you can provide us with some guidance.
I hope I can. So you want to start with talking a little bit about that?
Well, I want to start with you giving us a little background. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, so let's see, where do I start? So I'll go back to my roots. So originally from Chicago, so grew up there until I was 18 and grew up on the South Side. So a lot of people hear about the South Side of Chicago and not necessarily positive things about the South Side, but I will say, it was a place where I grew up where I realized that there weren't a lot of people who were able to access opportunities. And so growing up, I always thought, like, how can I do more? How can I be more? How can I, leave and find more in my life? So ultimately, I am a first generation college grad. So really proud of that. Went to Washington University in St. Louis. In my career, it spanned Wall Street, nonprofit, tech, coaching, and now entrepreneurship. So things have really gone in a wide spectrum. I've had lots of different opportunities. And I think the one common thread across those experiences is that I've always liked opportunities that allowed me to impact people. So that is who I am in a nutshell.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, LaMonica. It looks like you've had a lot of experience. I'm curious. I was reading about, the deadly weekend in Chicago. How do you feel about that?
I know. It's I think I have a little bit of PTSD from Chicago, but I saw an article that said over the weekend, Father's Day weekend, 104 people were shot, 15 people killed. And I think it said 5 of those people were minors. And that's just in one weekend, in a time where, we're under a pandemic and there's, social distancing and quarantine, yet that much happened, in that one weekend. So it definitely weighs a lot on me. I think a lot about leaving Chicago and, why, I guess, why was I like the one who was able to leave? Like no one in my neighborhood really went to college. No one, like I didn't even know what that looked like in terms of college and career. And so when I think about so many people who are still, facing so much violence, I don't really look at it like, oh, black on black crime is the thing that people need to be talking about. No, I think we need to be thinking about like what is the cause of people to be in that situation where maybe they don't have the hope. What were the social, mental, economic causes that leads to something like that, that much violence. So that's what I think a lot about.
Yeah, it's tough because I read the story about a young kid who got shot. She was inside the home and still got shot. It's heartbreaking when you hear stories like that.
It
Now,
is. It really is.
yes, yes, it is. Now, if you see me turning to the other screen, it's because I'm trying to share the video with my network. And
Okay.
I am not distracted. I promise. I am
No,
not.
I trust you.
Yes, yes. Would you like to go a little bit into your journey, how you started out? Yes.
Yeah. So, I think one place where I would start is really with education, because I think education really is sort of the catalyst for my entire journey. So for me, that would start with my high school. So I went to Whitney Young High School in Chicago. If you've read Becoming, that's where Michelle Obama went, but many years before I went there. Yes. So the neighborhood that I grew up with, I didn't go to my neighborhood school for high school. So I ended up going to Whitney Young, which was about an hour from my house, which meant I had to take like 2 buses and a train every morning and every afternoon to come home. But I think that was the place really where my journey started. So at that school, that was the first time that I really experienced diversity. And I saw, different kids from different backgrounds, and like not everyone were from low income backgrounds. So that was really the first time that I experienced that. And in that high school is where one of my teachers recommended me for a summer internship program. So this program was really designed for disadvantaged youth in Chicago to expose them to business. So here I was, like 16. I had an internship through the summer program, and they placed me in an investment banking firm. And at that time, I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, is it like a bank? Am I going to be a teller? I don't know what this is. But I think what was great about it is that it gave me exposure to career opportunities. And also there were 2 women who really took me under their wing in that program. And the 2 women that I worked for, they were fantastic. So one, her name is Monique Moore, and the other one, Deborah Carson. Like they saw something in me that I never even saw in myself. And they just did everything. I think it was about building me up every day, telling me what I could do, what I could be, things that I didn't even really think that I could do. And when I applied to college, they paid for my SAT courses. I didn't even know like that's what people did, right? Because I had a really low score on my SAT, and they were like, no, we got you. So they paid for my test prep, and got a much better score. They pushed me to apply to a bunch of Ivy League schools, and I was resisting. I was like, I can't get into Harvard. I can't get into Northwestern. And they were like, you're just going to apply. So I think it was just having someone who believed in me and constantly pushed me. And I ended up working in that company for 3 years. So that was high school. And I think that was really transformational for me.
Wow.
I can keep going, but I'll stop there.
I know this is really important. The having mentors and having people who believe in you, because
Right.
with the help you were motivated to apply. You probably wouldn't have applied to all those schools if.
Now I didn't get in to those schools, unfortunately, but I think it was about the fact that they pushed me to apply, and they pushed me to believe that I deserved to.
Now that's the thing. We have outreach schools that we may not get in, but once we do it, we feel empowered to try again, because you may not have gotten in the first time, but guess what? When it was time for grad school, shine, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so I think that was the big thing. Like that planted a seed for me. And I think for a lot of people, like even when I look at my kids or, younger people, I always try to plant seeds because even though today they may not really realize, what it can be, but later on it's going to grow and eventually they'll see what they can do. So by the time I applied to business school, I was working in New York. I was working on Wall Street, which to me was like mind blowing that I went from the south side of Chicago to Wall Street, literally Wall Street. That was the street that I was on. And I started seeing people who were going to business school. And I was like, these are people who are just like me. They were friends of mine. I was like, that's just like a regular person, right? Like I don't have to be a superwoman to apply to Harvard Business School. So that was sort of that next part of my journey that helped me believe, hey, maybe I can get in. And so I applied in 2000. It was 2003 when I applied, and honestly, it was the only school I applied to. And not because I was super confident that I know I'm going to get in, but at that point I was working in banking and I was 80-hour weeks, and it was really the only school I had time for. But the other thing I would touch on is there was a program that I was involved in during that time called Management Leadership for Tomorrow. So I got to give a big shout out to MLT. They go by MLT because that program is all about taking high potential talent, grooming them to understand the application process, and then helping them apply to top tier schools because they want to increase the number of underrepresented minorities in corporate America. So MLT was transformational for me, and it worked out. I got into HBS.
That's wonderful. You were brave to apply to one school. I remember when I was applying to grad school, it was like I was just applying all over the place. Rich school, non-rich school. I just wanted. For me, it was like I gotta get somewhere. I gotta move on.
Yeah, I definitely would not recommend applying to one school, but I think God blessed me with this opportunity for a reason. So it worked out, and I'm glad that it did.
Well, it looks like you have some fans in the chat room. We have someone saying, let's go. And then you have some questions too. Let me go to the first question. Oh my goodness, she went right into it. It's Morcon Newman, and she's asking, in the state of COVID crisis, how would you advise families to plan and save for college?
That's a good question. It's interesting because so right now I'm a coach, and I coach applicants on the application process to top tier schools. So primarily MBA candidates, but I also coach college applicants. And then a whole nother part of my business is that I coach entrepreneurs on startups and financial modeling and fundraising. And then I also coach on people trying to transition into new careers. So to go back to the question, a lot of my clients have been asking me, is it a good time to go to school? And should I spend that money? Is this the right time? And then I've had some people on the college side really thinking about, how do they really think about, planning for the future. So in a similar vein as what Morcor is asking. And so I feel like the financial cost of college is pretty significant. I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of people are saying like college is a scam because there's $1.6 trillion of debt, college debt, and like the average student has about $32,000 of debt, and then they get out and they can't find a job. And so is it even worth it? And I feel like it's absolutely worth it. I think in this time of COVID, people absolutely still need to go to school, because when you think about how are we going to be able to sustain our lives in the future if we don't have that baseline? You know what I mean? If another pandemic hits or some big economic crisis hits, how can you sustain your life without that foundation of school and education? So I mean, I think if people are still planning and saving and maybe even considering things like state schools, I think that's a big thing too, where it's not as expensive versus some of the bigger schools or the Ivy League schools that are more expensive. But I think it's still about making sure that you can go and have that foundation to build upon and have as that safety net for creating any kind of career opportunity you need to sustain yourself financially.
Wow, that's a thorough answer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there are lots of people with those types of questions. Now, about the college application process, you said that you coach people through that process.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do? Mm-hmm.
So as a coach, I would say like I am really about being that person who can help unlock two things like self-belief, but then also helping someone understand how to brand themselves. So I find that a lot of people don't truly understand what makes them special or how to position that in their application. And given how competitive applications are, it's the number one thing that you have to do. So it's not just about your grades or your test scores or where you went to school before, whether it's high school or college, but it's about how can you share your story, your impact, and your leadership in a way that's going to really connect with your audience. So that's what I do as a coach in terms of really helping people navigate that and tell their stories.
That's really neat. We got to send people to your website so we can help them through the application process. And I was reviewing your website, and I realized that you had helped people secure some financial aid as well.
Yeah, well, for the MBA application process, a lot of the financial aid tends to come from how good was your application. So it's less about applying separately for scholarships, but more so about the strength of your candidacy and how badly they want you. Some of the schools, like Ivy League schools like Harvard, they don't typically give merit-based fellowships or anything like that, but a lot of the other schools do. So a lot of my clients have gotten a lot of big money. I had someone this year who got $120,000 scholarship for Northwestern, and they said they loved her essays, they loved their application. So it was really about the strength of her story, and they based those decisions on the essays and the applications.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're going to have to make sure that people are writing impactful essays, strong essays, so they can get that money, right?
Exactly. It's about how you tell your story. And so I think one thing that I've learned is that like everyone has a story. Like even people who think they're boring or they're cookie cutter, I find that everyone has a story to tell. And so my clients have been primarily, they've been from all over the world. So if you think about, there's one spectrum of talent in the US, but there's a whole nother spectrum of talent outside of the US, right? So I would say 40% of my clients have been from outside of the US. And so it's been really interesting to see talent across the spectrum and then also help people, tell their story. So that's one of the things I like most. It's just learning about people, learning their stories. People tell me I'm a really good listener, and they're amazed at how I can listen to what they say and then connect the dots. And they're like, that was like therapy. So I think as a coach, people say I'm like their therapist too.
Go girl. That's neat. See, you have some positive comments. Hope Logan is saying that LaMonica is a rock. Yeah, call it Black Girl Black Girl Magic. Yes, that is so impressive. See, we have a viewer from YouTube who is asking you to tell us more about the MLT program. Is it solely for businesses, or can students on other career tracks be a part of it? Her name is Grace D.
Okay. So no, that's a good question. From what I know, and I try to keep up with what MLT is doing, just as an MLT alum, they think they solely focus on business, people who want to go the business route, but they do have a program for people who are preparing for college. I believe they try to, groom and prepare people who are applying to college. So when I did the program, I was actually in the pilot program, and so they only had the MBA program, and so they've expanded, but they do focus on college. They do focus on career prep too. So I would definitely check out their website. They typically have an application process every year, and it's pretty selective. Like, I've even worked with someone who wanted me to coach them on applying to MLT to just get into that program. So, but it's a fantastic program.
Okay, viewers, we did put LaMonica's web address. It's right there in the ticker. And so you can write it down. You can go on her website and browse. You can contact her if you have additional questions. But I think this is going great. Everybody wants to know about this application process and the potential to find money. I mean, do you give discounts for your services, especially at this time?
So not necessarily discounts, but I do have like different levels of the service in terms of making it accessible to different people at different price points. So there's some people who want to buy like an all-inclusive package, and that's when we just go all in, and we work together for about 6 months on everything. And then there are some people who just want a little bit, and they purchase that, and we work together in that way. But I've been thinking a lot about, in this time of COVID and, financial stress, designing a group coaching program that a couple of people have been asking me about, because I think that would be a good way to bring a lot of people together at the same time and share a lot of the knowledge. And I think that's the big thing. Like, with the underrepresented applicants I've worked with, a lot of them say, like, they don't know. They don't have anyone who that role model or who can tell them how to do it, and they're clueless. And so I think that's the big reason why I also started my own practice, because I used to do this with another company, but I started my own practice because I really wanted to be able to serve people in a way that they needed. And I found that a lot of people weren't having that type of access that they needed.
That's admirable that you're doing that. And, with your level of education and what you've achieved, it's also important for people to see somebody that looks like them and has lived a life and understands what they're probably going through. If I was applying to grad school now, I would not hesitate to contact you, because I'd be like, oh, she's got Michelle Obama's book back there. It's like two Southside girls. I'd be like, okay, I'm serious. It's really important to see people that look like us, and representation matters. I don't know. I probably say that word like 10 times, that phrase like 10 times a day.
But it's true. It's true. It's absolutely true.
Wow. So now tell me about your journey from Wall Street to business school. How was that transition?
So the first thing I'll say about that is like, I was really excited to go, because, people said it would be so fun and you learn so much. And the way that you learn at Harvard Business School is everything is based on cases. So you read a business case every day for every class, and then as a class you discuss it. So I remember being really excited going into this environment, but then as soon as I got on campus, I was like, whoa, like, did they really mean to pick me? Am I an admissions mistake? So I remember that journey felt really hard initially, because there were people in my class whose parents had private jets, and Mitt Romney's son was in my class. The guy who started Yelp was in my class. And actually the second year of business school, the president of Ghana's son was in the next class. And so it was just intimidating. I was like, well, what do they want to hear from me? Like, I don't know a lot about anything. And like, literally, I learned how to use chopsticks in business school because I just had not been exposed to so much. So I would say that journey initially was tough, but once I got more confidence and realized, hey, like my voice matters. And like you said, like representation matters. People need to hear what I have to say based on my experiences in my life. And maybe that will enlighten them in some way. So once I started to feel more confident in that, I will say things got a lot better. So it was a, I guess, a transformational experience.
Yeah, that's good to know. The reason why I asked that question is because, lots of people have been furloughed, some have lost jobs, and so they might be thinking about applying to go back to school. And I just wanted to have a feel of what the transition was like, adjusting to that environment. So I think you did good. People should be prepared to meet people from all walks of life if they should decide to transition. And you're saying that your experience was very much worth it, regardless of how much it cost, right?
Yes, it was expensive. It was a lot of debt. It was a lot of debt, Marge, but definitely worth it. I mean, I don't think that's an experience that you can replicate in any other type of environment. So from a personal growth perspective, but also just an exposure to greater opportunities, definitely worth it. And just to go back to what you said before, like if someone is thinking about making that transition now from being furloughed to business school, there are actually a lot of people making that decision right now. So it's probably going to be a very, very competitive year in terms of trying to apply and get in. But, I don't think that should stop anyone from going forward if that's what they really want.
And the Ivies may not be for everyone. You could get into a great state school and get a good foundation and have less debt. So there are so many routes out there if you want to go to grad school at this point, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you have to think about is it worthwhile? Like, where do you ultimately want to be long term in your career, and is it worth it in the short term? And sometimes it's not always about like the financial ROI. It could be the personal, ROI. So I think about it that way too, because I didn't go back into investment banking after school. So clearly that debt lingered for a long time. But, a lot of people who go into really high paying jobs right after school can pay that off quicker. So I guess you have to think about, what's the personal benefit, but also, the career benefit.
Yeah, I mean, some of your ROI and viewers' ROI is return on investment. The ROI could have been that you were in class with the founder of Yelp, and you knew Mitt Romney's kid, and you knew people who had jets, and so maybe if you were going somewhere, someone can fly you, or maybe you could procure your own jet. I mean, I'm just saying, there is
lots of other benefits. I met my husband in business school, so didn't really expect that, but I got my MBA and my MRS, so it's a good benefit.
Oh my God, that is so wicked! I got my MBA and my MRS. That is that is so cool, and you have quite a handsome husband too. So you did not do bad at all. That's really interesting. I have another question. Oh, from Timothy. And he's saying that what are some of your strategies for maintaining a healthy work-life balance?
That's a really good question. Hey, Tim. So for me, one thing that I thought a lot about when I graduated from business school was like there was this pressure to do something like really big that everyone else was doing in terms of, graduate, you get this high paying job, or you follow the herd and do what everyone's doing. But I did that for a little bit, and then I decided that I wanted more balance. And for me, ultimately, starting my own business and working for myself was the best way to find that balance. And I remember initially it felt hard to do that because I felt like, well, maybe I'm not being as successful as my classmates. And I think that's one thing that I've learned, to not measure myself by what other people are doing, but to really think about like what's going to benefit me and my family. Because I started my family pretty young after school, and now I have 3 kids, so balance is critical for me. But I think it's having my own business that really allows me to have that balance. And honestly, like, I have not worked in an office since 2007. I have no desire to ever work in an office. And I think when I graduated from HBS, I didn't realize how much HBS had given me in terms of being able to start my own business. So now I look back and I really appreciate that it gave me that, because I've been able to have great balance by having my own business.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, work-life balance. Like this morning, you know how I do. I wake up very early every morning, and so I sent a message to. We have a guest. He's a councilman in Maine, and he's the first Muslim councilman in Maine. So he's coming on Humanity Chats, I think, in 2 weeks. And so he had sent me a message, and I sent a response, but I didn't realize that it was that early. And so later he responded, and he's like, Marjy, do you sleep? So that's the work-life balance right there. Yeah, I do sleep, guys. I tend to go to bed early sometimes. And
well, that's what I thought. I got a text from you this morning at 6, I think it was like 6:25, and I was like, what? Like, who's texting at 6:25? So yeah, you might have to think about some balance.
Marjy. See, this is the thing. I wake up early because I try to talk to my Ghana family in the mornings. And I try to catch them early, because if I don't, my mom is going to call and be like, are you up? So I try to do that and get my exercise in before my day starts. And I have to do the Marjy stuff, and then I have to do the Marjorie stuff. I'm like two different people. So so that's why I'm an early riser. But I have another question here from Morcourt Newman. She's asking, in the state of COVID crisis, how would you advise families to plan and save for college? Oh, she did ask that already. Yeah, that's another question. She was asking, what do you think about taking a gap year in 2020 for a freshman?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I've had like a lot of my clients. I learned so much about people just through my clients. But I had a lot of people, when I just go through, like, what's your story? Tell me about college. A lot of people who took gap years that were really like beneficial. So I'm thinking about this in light of COVID. As long as they are doing something very active, and they're learning and growing from it, I think a gap year can be beneficial, because you have to be able to sell it. You can't just say you took time off because you couldn't get into college, or that's how a school might read it. But if someone is starting a nonprofit or starting a business, even at that age, like, I'm seeing people doing phenomenal things. They're really innovating right now during COVID. So a gap year to build and grow and do something, I think could be great.
Okay, advice taken. Now, parents, students, if you're watching, you heard LaMonica. You can take a gap year if you're going to if you plan on doing something worthwhile, right? But
exactly.
Then again, with all the stress of COVID-19, if you just need to de-stress, I think that's okay too. What do you think?
I think that this time period is unique. Mm-hmm. And if I wonder, like, I'm just thinking about this out loud, like, how will admissions officers, because the whole world has changed, right? So how will admissions officers look at things? Everyone's looking at life from a completely different lens now, right? So normally, if someone took time to just really de-stress, that probably would negatively impact them in terms of their chances. But during this time, like, I wonder, honestly, if schools are going to be more, I don't know, like, human. You know what I mean? If these admissions officers will be a bit more human and say, hey, this has been a tough year, like, pandemic, racially, like, a super tough year. So, I would hope that they would be more human. I wouldn't want someone to force themselves into college right now just because that seems like the typical path, if they really need that mental space to de-stress.
And I think that people will probably call the colleges that don't take that into consideration, they will call them out, because there are people that have lost family members more than you're on mute, girl. Yeah, I muted you. There are people that have lost family members, and it's just they've had families losing jobs. Things have been tough, and so if they should decide that they just want to take a little bit of time to go into college, I think that it'd be good for colleges to look into that. Now we have some more questions here. PST Pharmacy is asking if you coach students looking at going to medical school.
So I haven't coached someone going to medical school specifically, but I've had applicants going for PhDs in very, very scientific fields. I've had people going for masters in like quantitative finance. So one thing that I realize is that it's like the concept of like teaching someone how to tell their story really crosses all schools, really. So there are lots of nuances, of course, about the MBA application process that I help people untangle. But the story aspect, that's pretty standard across all schools. So that's something that I can do. Like, I feel good about my ability to help someone uncover who they are and tell their story.
So now this is my question. That means that it could be that the person is going for an undergraduate program, and you would still be able to help them tell their story?
Yeah, so I have worked with a few people applying for undergraduate programs. For business school, though, I've worked with roughly 475 people.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of people.
A lot of people, a lot of stories, a lot of random information stuck in my head about people. But like I said, it's just been cool to meet people from all over the world. I had someone from like Comoros Island, and I didn't even know where that was. I had someone in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, people in India. So it's just cool to learn about people and just, yeah.
I'm thinking about how this program is on YouTube, so you could probably share it with people in Nigeria.
I had lots of Nigerian applicants, actually. Yes, more than Ghana. I don't know where the Ghana people aren't coming to me.
Well, I said Nigeria because we know that Nigerians are really go-getters, and they would probably, pay you $1 gazillion to get them that essay to go to 10 Ivy Leagues or whatever.
Yeah, they're about their education. Seriously.
Yeah, I just said 10 Ivy Leagues. I'm like, do we even have 10? Apology. Oh no. Audience, please forgive me. I'm actually smarter than this.
You are.
Well, we have another question. Chisom is asking any tips or advice for paying for grad school.
Yeah. I don't have like a lot of experience in the financial sourcing process, like separate from the application process, because a lot of my applicants get the money based on the strength of their main application. But what I'm finding is that there are some schools that have, a focus on specific demographics of students. And so when you research those schools, if you see that they have something like that, they have specific scholarships. So like Stanford has some great scholarships, like for students from India or Africa. Oxford in the UK, they like have committed to having 13%, at least 13% of their students be from Africa, which I've never heard of a US program putting a commitment down like that. And they have a fantastic number of scholarships for that. So I would say, look for schools that are looking for certain types of students, and they have specific scholarships for those students. And, that can be a good strategy.
Well, thanks for that advice. It sounded like a little dig at the U.S. for not having programs that would give that much money. But if the U.S. is looking to quell H-1B visas, or even, we need engineers, we need physicians. We don't have people for those jobs, and the U.S. is trying to, do that. Then that's something worth looking into, right?
Right. Yeah. Just the talent pipeline that exists right now is not ready for what the future will be. So where's that talent going to come from? You know?
It is surprising, but I'm very proud of the United States and the innovative technologies that we have here. But sometimes I look at videos of some of the advancement in places like China, like, oh my goodness, are we like 50 years behind? Or it's amazing what people in other countries know. I'm just blown away.
I know. No, I totally agree. I think it just kind of comes down to the structure of the education system here. And I mean, that's a whole nother conversation about all the things that need to be reformed about education in America. But yeah, we're definitely not quite where some of the other countries are in terms of the future of work and what kind of talent we need to support that.
Well, looks like we have a lot of active YouTube viewers. Katrina is asking, how do you find out if schools are looking for certain type of students? Is that information usually on their website?
Yeah, yep, it's usually on their websites, specifically either on their financial aid or scholarship pages, or on their admissions pages. And what I find too, it's like you have to talk to people. You have to really get out there and do your research. And I always tell people, talk to students, talk to alums, really kind of get a feel for the things that are not on the website, because then that's when you can uncover some of those hidden gems. And so, like, I have someone right now who's interviewing next week for this big scholarship at Oxford for African students. And it's something that she found from talking to students and also reading their website.
Oh my goodness, that means that when we go to all these college visits, we have to make sure that we're making the right connections. I have a kid who's going to be applying in 2 years, and so hey, you got to get ready.
He's a rock star already, though. He is.
You don't know until you get in.
True. But he seems like he's on track, basically.
Well,
from what I can see.
We pray so. Well, we have another question. Oh, Katrina. Katrina is saying thank you. Yes.
Oh, welcome.
Yes, Katrina, you are so nice and so polite.
I know, it's so sweet.
So sweet. Such a beautiful picture, too. I see you have some fans here. Nalam Okrah is giving you the fire.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Wow, this is interesting, LaMonica. I am so grateful that we have you here. Can you tell us about how we can utilize the opportunities that we have during this time? Whether it be for starting a new business, going to school, making sure our small businesses stay afloat. What's the word on that?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember when the pandemic first started, I was like, oh, wow, like there's so many things that I want to do because, there's so many things I had been planning to do, and this is the perfect time to do it. And I didn't get a chance to do all of them. So I guess the first thing is like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. But if you're in the mental state and you have the capacity to do it, I think it's a great time to just continue learning. Like, even though I got that fancy degree, that doesn't mean like that's the end of my education. So I spend a lot of time learning from other entrepreneurs online. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think those are fantastic. Like if you can listen to podcasts about things that you're interested in. Right now I'm listening to a lot about entrepreneurship and online marketing. So, find things that you are interested in and, listen and learn. Also, I find that courses. I took an online course. I think this was a great time to do an online course. So if that's something that if you've been eager to learn a certain topic, there are lots of free courses online through some of the universities. I think that's a good way to spend this time. And I've seen some of my clients start really cool initiatives. One person started something with some friends for frontline workers. And it snowballed. And then another person started a small business to help small businesses survive by buying gift cards. And that's been a really good initiative. And they got some grant money to push it forward. So, I think there's a spectrum of things that you can do, both, for personal development or also, just innovating and starting something new.
Well, I'm with you. My brother-in-law is a project manager. He's in Virginia, and I see his LinkedIn updates. He's taking a lot of free courses, and so every now and then he updates. He's this certified. He's that certified, and
He's smart. He's doing a lot.
yeah, he's doing a lot of certified things, and he's already smart. I mean, he's an engineer. He has an MBA. From one of the top schools, and he's getting all these certifications. And just this week, he had another update. He is PMP certified. He just got his project management. I'm like, dude, you're gonna be CEO by the time.
He is on a roll.
I saw that. I'm like, I better be nice to him. I'm gonna cook for him. The next time he comes, I'm just gonna ask him how he likes his eggs. I'm just gonna be really nice to him because that boy is on to some greatness. I mean,
Yes. Now that's good though. I mean, if like I said, if you have the mental capacity to do it, it's an ideal time. Take advantage of all of these things that are available to just keep learning. Like learning never ever stops.
yeah, learning never ever stops. But you know, guys, if you don't feel like learning, I think that's also okay.
It's
A
okay.
few weeks ago, we had a mental health session here on Humanity Chats, and we talked to some mental health experts. It's okay to debrief, to meditate. You don't have to be going all the time. So if you wanna take it easy, that's also okay. If you want to be like my brother-in-law, I got his digits. So just hit me up. I will send it to you. You can get certified. You will be CEO. Oh my God. If he watches this, he's gonna smoke you. He's gonna be like, Marjy, why did you do that?
It's good though. It's good.
Yeah, I am so proud of him. Yeah.
That won't be me right now. I'll stick to my podcast. But I'm not going to do 10 certifications. Not right now.
Okay, you're listening to all these podcasts. Do you have any podcasts that you would want to suggest?
Yeah. So there's one that I listen to a lot called Side Hustle Pro. Have you ever listened to that one?
No, I haven't. I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Side Hustle Pro.
it's a really good podcast. And so I discovered it maybe about a year ago. And it's hosted by a Black woman. And she basically features Black women who have gone from their corporate jobs to their side hustle full time. So that's why it's called Side Hustle Pro. But it's all about their journeys and how they're building their businesses, and they get into the nitty gritty. So it's really interesting. You just hear about so many different people from so many different industries. And I think the other big thing about it is that you see all these women and you're like, wow, they're doing it. And, you just feel inspired. So I think if you want some inspiration, Side Hustle Pro is a really good one to listen to.
Okay. Well, viewers, you had that Side Hustle Pro. You probably listened to it, and you would have a good side hustle. You have your main hustle, and then get a good side hustle. And
because that's the thing, like we can't have one revenue stream. So a lot of people have their main job and they have their side hustle, but then eventually you want that freedom and that ownership. And so if you can take that side hustle, to your full-time career, I think that's awesome.
Well, guys, if you did not know, your side hustle could become your passive income, and it could take you places. I mean, so hey, Side Hustle Pro, here we go.
It did for me. Honestly, I started coaching as a side hustle, and now it's my full-time career now. So,
well, you never know. You never know where. Lately, I don't remember what I'm saying.
It's late.
You never know where your side hustle will take you. I mean, I started writing and I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much. Oh, somebody is in here asking, I love your story. Wow. Are you thinking of writing a book about your life journey? That's from DSD Pharmacy.
Wow, I never thought about it. I mean, I have thought about that there are a lot of things about my journey that, I think so many people can learn from, but I never thought about putting it in a book. That could be interesting.
Well, I tell you what, right behind you, you have a girl from South Side of Chicago who went to the same high school that you went to, who ended up becoming the First Lady of the United States of America.
Yeah.
and you went to Harvard, and
Yep.
it's like you guys are like living parallel lives.
I need to meet her one day. She doesn't even know that we have these parallel lives. African husbands too, right? So it's
Oh yeah, that's right. Brilliant ones. Yeah, who both went to Harvard. Oh
yeah,
my God, you guys have to meet the Obamas.
exactly.
So awesome. But you know what's gonna happen? When they invite you, you gotta let them know that, oh, you have this friend, Marjy who was talking about it, and so she has to come. Yeah, I'm gonna come with you.
I got you.
For you. I'm gonna do anything you want me to do.
I won't leave you behind.
Never leave me behind. We're going. We're the square.
Oh.
We're gonna go together.
Yes. Oh, thanks, Okrah. I see her comment.
Yes. Oh yeah, she's saying that she will definitely read it. Yeah, we all will read it. And guess what? I promise to promote it.
Thank you. You can give me some tips on writing.
Oh, yeah, I will. Oh, DSD, I could write it for you. Now, DSD, I don't know if I could write it. I could probably have some ideas, but LaMonica speaks different from me. I speak so basic that I will probably be doing her an injustice if I wrote that book. I mean, she has some fancy Harvard words.
Oh, girl. Didn't I tell you I didn't know how to use chopsticks before I got to Harvard? So we all start somewhere.
Well, guess what? You did not know how to use chopsticks before you got to Harvard. I still don't know how to use chopsticks. I still don't know how to use chopsticks. So, girl, you have one up on me. What else don't I know how to do? Like, yeah, a gazillion things. I tell you what. So, we've covered a lot today. We talked about your background. We talked about the college application process. We talked about how to find money going to college. We talked about college during the COVID times, whether the gap year is recommended. We talked about starting your own business or finding new ideas. We talked about the side hustle. Girl, we have covered a lot today.
I didn't even realize it was that much.
Yeah, and we talked about your potential book, which is going to become a bestseller. And I am going to get my cut from that.
Yes. From the South Side to Harvard.
I know, South Side to Harvard. Oh, we're probably coming up with a title.
Yes.
I know, right? Yeah.
I like that. South Side to Harvard. Yeah.
Okay, girl. And we're going to find you an agent so that you can get that $1 million publishing deal.
Yeah.
Or maybe even more than $1 million. Hey, people got $8 million for their books, right?
Right.
Why
I
not?
have kids in college soon, so.
Yeah. But it's not just about the kids. You're going to take me shopping after COVID. I can tell you the shops that I want to go to, all the businesses I want to support, all the brand names that I want, that I cannot afford. I mean, it's like 10 million things, girl. Oh, I am so glad that we were able to do this, and you brought some sunshine into my life. I mean,
good.
It's gloomy outside, and there's a lot of stress going on these days. And so when we get together, we're able to kind of lift off a little bit of the stress. Oh, and I see Kofi up here. He said, interesting and engaging, easy to digest. Excellent job, both of you.
Nice. Thank you.
Oh, I don't know if he means it, but...
You know he means it. He wouldn't say it if he didn't mean it.
See, Kofi up here and his son have the Duke shirts on. So that's the goal. That's the essay that they had to write. Get into Duke or bust. That's the whole life.
About Duke? Okay.
Yeah. Well, we have another comment. Okay, Chisom is back. She said, being a woman of color, having graduated from Harvard, How have you dealt with microaggressions or with people who have doubted your credentials? Woo, preach.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think it comes down to that confidence thing and realizing that I have a voice, I have a perspective. And I think in the beginning, I used to just ignore those little things, those microaggressions. Um, but then it got to a point where I grew, and then I realized that I don't have to just let that happen, right? So I let my abilities speak for itself, right? And it's funny, a lot of like I don't even have a lot of Black clients, actually. A lot of them are not. And so what I appreciate is that people see me for who I am. They see the value that I have. But at the same time, I know that there are a lot of people who see me and think, oh, she got to where she is because of affirmative action, or oh, she probably didn't deserve that opportunity. But I know 100% that I did. You know what I mean? So, I always just keep that in mind. I keep going, I keep pushing. And so I'm not going to let those things, knock down my confidence. But it happens, Marge. I mean, I was on a webinar 2 weeks ago for Harvard Business School where you had people, alums, sorry, I lost you for a second. But you had alums and students talking about the microaggressions. They're talking about the things that they experience on campus in their career. And like here you have the elite, right, of business education, and they're still going through all of those things. So listening to that webinar last week was really powerful because, it just reminded me that having this degree doesn't erase anything. Like it's not the pinnacle that makes you think, oh, I've finally proven myself, because people will still doubt you. They will still doubt you. So I think it's just about pushing against that and, just being confident in who I am and what I have and what I can do.
Well, Chisholm, you heard that. Be confident, own your stuff, right?
And use your voice. I think it's about using your voice 100%. I think in the beginning of my career, I was afraid to say stuff, and now I'm not. So I think that's really the difference.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head using your voice. And sometimes when you use your voice, you're gonna lose friends, you're gonna lose support. But guess what? You're doing what is right, and that's what matters. That confidence is a must. To have confidence and know that you can do it. Be proud.
Yeah, I deserve this. You know what I mean? No one handed this to me.
I know, right? I know, right? I deserve it. I deserve it. I deserve it. I keep telling myself that. I'm like, no, you cannot take that away from me. Jesus gave it to me, and I'm going to own it, and I'm going to walk with my chest out, and I'm going to.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, Marjy, preach. Well, LaMonica, we've talked. I mean, I can't believe it's almost time for us to wrap up.
Okay.
That is unbelievable. We're not done. Hey, guys, we are not done. So we're going to go on Instagram, and we're going to do a wrap up there. So my Instagram is this Marjy Marge. LaMonica will be with me, and we're going to go in the chat room and talk a little bit. So when we leave here, don't leave. Follow us on Instagram, and we can talk about some fun stuff and give you a little more. LaMonica may have a few more tips for you. Thank you so much for this. Okrah is in the chat room, and she said, so proud to be friends with these two ladies. Congratulations. Great discussion. Well, thank you, Okrah. We are proud to be friends with you too, Miss Doctor.
Yes, saving lives.
Wow, being on the front line.
Taking care of babies. Yes.
I mean, this is just so beautiful. All this Black girl magic.
Yes.
We are so smart. We are beautiful. Lord have mercy. Jesus really created us like in his own image, guys. Yes. Well.
Absolutely.
Yes. Facebook is being robbed. Stay at coffee shop. Stay no at coffee shop. Follow us to Instagram. We have less than a minute to go. Oh, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I've lost a comment. There was a comment from Rita. There's so many comments that we're missing. I'm sorry. We love you guys. We really appreciate everybody who tuned in. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the other side. It was really nice talking to you. Tune in 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week for Humanity Chats. We're going to have Ryan Langley. He's an attorney from South Carolina. Brilliant guy, great guy. And he is going to talk about REI, the Race Equity Index. Please, please, please join us. Let's talk to Ryan. Let's see what he has to say. And together we can build a better America. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week. No, we will not see you next week. Join us on Instagram. We love you. Bye.